Mentioned, I've had the fortune of going on many of these trips. After living in Denmark for a year, I have since come to work for the city itself, so I'm on the other side of the fence now for the last 3 years, and it's been very inspiring for me to take the lessons that were learned during those previous years and really begin to apply them to the public policies that we have here within Seattle, how we can use them to move forward and achieve the kind of goals that we have. I'm actually an energy and climate change advisor within DPD, and the time spent in Scandinavia has been invaluable to me to really see what the potential is and to understand what is achievable as well as very pragmatic ways of getting there. I wanted to touch on just a few of the programs that we have going on right now that I think are directly attributable to some of the work that we've seen in Scandinavia. One is years ago when we were in Denmark, we learned about what's called building performance labeling, which is the idea that people understand how much energy their building uses, and they can use that information to inform them as far as, should I be making energy efficiency improvements in my building? How does this building compare to other buildings around? Do I have an efficient building or not? It's very difficult for us to get that information here in Seattle. So we have since rolled out a program, an energy disclosure ordinance that was passed just this year by council, and over the next 2 years, 9,000 buildings in Seattle will begin benchmarking their performance so that the market will then have the right tools to understand what are the best buildings to purchase, where do I want to rent. Building owners themselves will understand, how is my building performing. So that was a direct outcome of some of the things that we saw in Scandinavia years ago. Another corollary to that is we have great energy codes here in Seattle. As you can tell, I'm a bit of an energy wonk. That's one of the areas I focused on. But we have great energy codes here, but they tend to be fairly complex. They're getting more and more difficult to enforce, and hundreds of pages of prescriptive measures that have to be achieved. When we first started looking at energy codes in Scandinavia, we realized that they're really thin. They're about 10 or 15 pages long, and they describe performance outcomes. What does this building actually have to achieve, as opposed to how do we have to get there? So as a result of that work, the city has a partnership with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. We've established a research group here called the Preservation Green Lab that's looking specifically at how we can develop this new model for energy codes, an outcome-based energy code, so that you have agreed upon targets of performance, and we measure them after a building is occupied to see, did we hit it or not? It's a very different compliance and enforcement model than we're used to here. But it's been getting a lot of attention regionally and now at the national level as well. So we're hoping this is a model that we can continue to move forward and really turn it into a viable approach here in the city. And then one last element that I want to touch on is you've heard some comments about how important it is to think differently about governance and breaking down business silos and things like that. That obviously is it's a huge issue within any bureaucracy. We have an initiative right now, sustainable infrastructure. It's within our Sustainable Communities Initiative, and it's really beginning to look at those ideas. How can we emulate what's been happening in Scandinavia and look at the relationship between energy and waste and transportation and our water systems? Are there more efficient ways of developing new infrastructure? How do we integrate that into the neighborhood planning processes that we have right now? So we're looking at very different ways of breaking down those business silos, finding ways to make our investments in smarter and much more efficient ways. And again, that's a result of having seen that this can really work in Scandinavia. You don't have to follow the normal lines of command and control. There's better ways of doing things.